Hi, welcome to Forbes Let's Talk the Insurance Edition. My name's Nicola Dawn and I'm one of the insurance partners at Forbes, and each podcast I'll be taking you on a journey with one of our guests through their work, life and career. Hi and welcome to this edition of Forbes Let's Talk the Insurance Edition. Good to see you. I'm really pleased today to say that I've got one of my fellow partners in insurance, Tim Smith, here.
Hello, Nick.
Hello. To chat about all sorts of issues. I'm really good. Well, as we record this, England have literally just got through to the Women's World Cup final. So I'm really excited. Very excited. I mean, by the time this goes out, it could have gone one way or the other. Yes. But at this very moment in time, I'm very excited.
The doors,
it was. But I'm really excited and we absolutely smashed them. So that's really good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. Well, it's lovely to welcome you to the podcast, Tim, and to see you. Can we start off and just tell us a bit about your journey into law? Because it's not quite the usual course.
Yes, it's a little bit different perhaps to other journeys. So I started off, I actually did a degree in construction management for like managing building sites and contractors and operatives and what have you. So a little bit different. But in the final year of that degree, I did a dissertation on claims for pure economic loss, Murphy and Brentwood and Junior Books and Vici, all that sort of stuff. And I thought, wow, this looks good. But it was all a bit late by then, of course. So I couldn't go back and rewind the clock. So I had to think outside the box. What else could I do? So I went and got a job. Working on construction sites and working as a site engineer. And I worked there for quite a few years and then started looking at the options to try and study law and qualify as a solicitor. That was going to be the end. That's the end goal. But it took rather a long time, a bit longer than I thought.
But look at you now, super successful partner.
There we go. So then I got a job as a loss adjuster, so I started moving across to more of a claims environment and started studying part-time for what was then the postgraduate diploma in law. And then the LPC. So I went to the York College of Law, did the LPC, did a training contract at another firm in York, and then finally got to Forbes in 2009 and been here ever since.
That's a really interesting route. So it must have been quite a different work environment, working out on construction sites to working in an office and doing what we do now.
Yeah, it was. But I guess sort of wherever you go, people are people, aren't they? So it was quite a good grounding for different types of clients. And actually, the building side of it was one of the best jobs for dispelling stereotypes. Because you'd see some poor guy digging a hole or driving a tractor or driving a machine, and you'd go over and have a word with him, and you'd find out that he's listening to opera in his cab, or he's into all sorts of weird and wonderful things, or she. So it was a very good job for sort of leveling things off and dispelling any stereotypes you might have about people and backgrounds and what they do. So very good.
And great, obviously, for a claims background to actually have been out and done the work as well and understand what clients might need now, because you've been at literally the coalface, nearly.
The coalface bit. So that was good. No, very good.
Excellent. And you were in our Leeds office with Siobhan, who we did the last podcast with, the lovely Siobhan.
Yes, fantastic Siobhan.
And enjoying life over there.
Yeah, loving it. No, it's good team. So we've obviously got Siobhan's over there, and we've got Sid, and we've got Cameron, and we've got Zane, and then we've got the other teams with Leonie and Justine. So they're all really good.
All buzzing over there. I like coming over to Leeds for a little trip.
It's different, bit of a change.
It's good. Yeah. And what can you tell us about Japanese knotweed and trees? Because that's your speciality.
So that's my thing. Yeah. So I'm trying to think how many years ago now. We started basically specialising on the environmental side on claims for Japanese knotweed and tree cases, so acting for local authorities. So ordinarily, we were acting for the party or the organisation that had the trees or the Japanese knotweed allegedly on their land, or certainly the trees would be fine, but Japanese knotweed allegedly on their land. So we started dealing with these cases, and the really good thing about those sorts of cases, I find, is there's almost like two limbs to them. So you start off by getting all the information, say for the trees, the reports, the soil analysis, the monitoring, everything else goes with it. Or if it's Japanese knotweed, you get the reports from the Japanese knotweed firm. Again, about investigations, what they found, where they think the Japanese knotweed has spread from to. And then the best bit I find, there's two bits, but the first part is actually going out to site, because you have to go out and meet these people, which is really good, what I like doing. And from my background, I spent quite a bit of time outdoors. So naturally, I like to be outdoors where I can be. So that's really good. You get to go out and meet contractors, get to go out and meet expert engineers, expert surveyors, get to meet the people who've been affected by these trees. Or
I was going to say, so
Japanese
when we talk
knotweed.
about tree claims,
Yes.
what sort of claims do you get
There's
for the
all
old
sorts,
trees?
Nick, all sorts.
Oh, they're wily old
So
things,
they
aren't
are.
they?
So you can start from the top. So you've got like branches falling off, injuring people. So that's sort of the norm that you would see. And then you've got the invisible side of things, which is underground with the tree roots. So the tree root ones, I think, are probably a bit more interesting because they're a bit more involved, there's a bit more to them, there's a bit more to look at in terms of reports, etc. Whereas the above ground, it's fine, interesting cases, but it's all there in the open to see. There's a bit less, I suppose, guesswork or trying to put together the pieces. And really, that's what it's all about. With the Japanese knotweed or the tree cases, it's all about putting together the pieces of the jigsaw and then trying to work out what the actual cause was, whether if it's Japanese knotweed, where it came from, what the source was. If it's a tree case, is it actually the tree roots that's causing damage to the property? Because as I found out, there are a whole multitude of reasons why buildings move, and one of which can be tree roots, but there could be defective foundations or poor foundations, leaking drains, inadequate construction. There could be other trees involved. So you could have a tree that's on the land that you're acting for the client, but there could be other trees on the claimant's land or somebody else's land that's influencing the property movement. So there's all sorts of things to look at there. And then the second bit that I really like is when you come back to the office, you've got all these photographs and plans, well, all electronically now, but previously you'd have poured over them on your desk and tried to work out what was what. And then you try and apply the law to it. So you're trying to work out where it fits in terms of case law, where it fits in terms of where you think the case is going to go. So that's the other part. So the two bits really, going out is really good, and the meeting with the clients, the meeting with the claimants, and meeting with the consulting engineers. I like that bit. But coming back and then getting your head round all this information you've gathered in and then trying to work out what's what.
So it's a bit of the fresh air and then putting the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what I like doing with my work as well, especially the long tail stuff. And you go back and looking at trying to put things into context. It's really interesting.
It's amazing because at first, when you first read a document or first look at some photographs and a plan, you form one view normally, or an initial view. Then you go out to site, or if you go out and see clients, you form a slightly different view, and they bring it back and you take a step back and you're trying to be objective and trying to look at it rationally and applying the law to it. You can sometimes go in a slightly different direction, but it's certainly good. It sounds
really interesting.
Very interesting, yes.
Yeah, and it's important, obviously, in your work to go out and see the actual tree or the
I think Japanese that certainly helps, because you can do basically like a desktop review, so you could just look at a report, photographs, plans, reports in from the client. But I always say to clients, if the claim is worth a reasonable amount of money that justifies us going out, then it's probably best to go out, because then you see the bigger picture. You can see where that particular tree fits in. You can see where the Japanese knotweed fits in. And we've had numerous cases in the past where there's been all sorts of discussions about boundaries. So you end up trying to actually work out, well, is that tree actually on your land in the first place? Is that Japanese knotweed the source? Is that coming from your land, or is it coming from somebody else's land? And you'd be surprised how many times, even when you get a report in from a surveyor, an engineer, or somebody dealing with Japanese knotweed, be surprised how many times the boundaries aren't actually in the right place, and it transpires that they've been moved. And people move boundaries for all sorts of reasons. But if you go to site, you can start working out in terms of either dimensions and measurements from the property, or even just features on the ground. You can look at where roads are and pavements are, and you can work things out fairly accurately to where the boundaries should be.
So it helps, and it actually reduces the amount of time you have to spend on it then, because you've got a view in your mind about where it is.
And you can say to the other side, be it a claimant solicitor or a claimant in person, you can say, well, I've been out to site, I can tell you that that's not the case, it's not there, it's over here. Whereas if you haven't been, it's quite difficult. And also you find photographs can be deceptive, because you may have pictures of, say, Japanese knotweed, for example, but the description in the report might say that's right adjacent to our property, but when you actually go out there, it could be a couple of 100 metres away, but you're not to know that until you actually go out. So I think site visits, very important.
The way forward. The way forward. Do you ever take videos as well when you're out on site?
I do sometimes. I tend to, if I'm taking a video, I tend to walk around and try and describe the scene and what's happening and where the various locations are. But the only thing I'd say with videos is that they can become a little bit, I suppose sometimes with photographs, it's easier to pinpoint things when you're looking back at things, whereas a video, sort of looking around thinking, right, that's there, but then where was the other? What I like to do is basically take photographs sort of panning round, and I piece them together. When I get back, I can say,
you've
right,
almost got a panoramic view of it.
That's it. So I can see the trees there, the properties here, the other trees or vegetation's over here. So that's what I tend to do. But videos, yes, we do
good.
videos.
Well, you know, now on a phone you can do almost anything, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really useful. We've even had video calls from site before as well. So if the other side's engineer can't make the site visit, then we'll have a video call and we can do it on site. So it can be really, really, really useful. Very good.
And can you tell us about Japanese knotweed? Because I had never ever heard of Japanese knotweed before I met you. Well, and now it seems to be literally everywhere.
It is. I think with social media really picked up on it, and certain newspapers or digital enterprises certainly picked up on it and said, right, you know, look out for Japanese knotweed. It's the worst thing that can happen to you. It can cause damage to your property. It can. But if you look at the papers and the material on it, it's very rare that it actually causes any physical damage. But it does have this blight that goes with it. So if you have Japanese knotweed on your property, then it can potentially cause you all sorts of problems. You can't just simply cut it down and throw it away. You have to dispose of it in a proper manner. And there's all sorts of rules that you have to follow when dealing with it. But it actually came from, I think it was back in the Victorian times, they brought it from abroad as a beautiful flowering plant. It's got a beautiful white flower on it in the summertime. But unfortunately, it's very, very quick growing. And it can spread fairly rapidly as well via these rhizomes, which is basically a bit like if you think of almost like an onion, like a ball root underground, and these things can spread very, very quickly without actually realising above ground how far it's spread. And it grows quickly, and it can cause damage to properties. But probably the most telling point is when you come to sell your property, as part of the search, as part of the forms you have to fill in, you have to declare and say, have you ever had Japanese knotweed? And that's really where the difficulty comes in, because if you tick that box, and of course it then brings in all sorts of other questions and queries, and how are you going to resolve it, how are you going to treat it, how are you going to get rid of it, etc.
Was it in Victorian times they realised it might be a problem, or was it?
I don't think so.
Is it as houses?
I think it was.
In my history buff
I think probably the issue was it was used in gardens horticulturally as a decorative flower, but as we've pushed out in terms of development and building, we've encroached more in areas where you like to find it. So things like railway embankments, it seems to flourish quite well there, basically because it won't get disturbed. It's got good soil drainage because of the embankment, and normally on the south side or facing the sun, it's going to get the sun, which again it likes and it grows with. So it's really, as we've pushed out the boundaries for development sites, we've picked it up there. But also in terms of water courses, you only need a very small piece of Japanese knotweed, literally the size of my thumb. So if you were to pick up a piece of Japanese knotweed and throw it down somewhere else, it would sprout and spring up. And it's a tiny little piece. So you don't need a piece with roots on, you don't need a piece with leaves on, you can literally just cut a piece. And
it sounds like something from a horror film.
Yes,
Day the Triffids or something like that, doesn't it?
You could look at it that way, yes, yeah. But if you treat it right, if you contain it, if you get like a buffer zone around it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to successfully contain it, and there shouldn't be any issues. But it does have very, very bad press. And certainly as it's things that stand at the moment, you can claim damages for Japanese knotweed encroachment, depending on what systems you've got as the landowner. But if you basically put your head in the sand and try to ignore it, like all these things, it will come back and it will bite you.
Yeah. So do we act for local authorities and insurance for those sorts of claims?
I act predominantly for local authorities, but also for some landowners. But we're basically on 99% of the time on the defendant side. So usually the tree is on our land as the defendant, or the Japanese knotweed or alleged Japanese knotweed is on our land as the defendant. I suppose the other thing to point out there is a lot of people, and even the experts, will say it's Japanese knotweed, but when you get out to site and get actually looking at the site itself and get other experts involved, you can often find it's not even Japanese knotweed. It's just a plant that looks very similar. It's not that easy to distinguish it. So your first port of call would be to distinguish, is it actually Japanese knotweed? Fine if it is, but if it's not, then you're like, well, let's carry on.
Case closed.
Case closed. Yeah, go do something else.
On to the next.
Yeah, on to the next one. Yeah.
It's fascinating, really, isn't it? And did you discover, like when you did, because I think you did the ELPL sorts of cases prior to that.
Yes.
Did it kind of came across your desk and you thought, this is interesting?
Yeah, it did to a degree, but not in great numbers, because it wasn't relatively well known going back then. But it basically started to develop after the RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, done a paper about the difficulties with Japanese knotweed, and that was back in 2012, I think it was. So after that, give it a few more years after that, and things started to roll on from there. That's when basically claimant solicitors realised there was potentially a claim in there for nuisance in terms of encroachment, and started to pursue the claim. So that's really how it came about. So we did deal with them, but not in the numbers that we deal with them now.
Excellent. And I've spoken to quite a few insurers, and they were saying that it's becoming a really big thing on their books now.
Yeah. I think the problem is the size of the infestations as well, because it's very rare that you end up with a knotweed infestation that's, say the size of the size of the chair I'm sitting on. Normally, if it's left and nobody does anything with it for a couple of years, then you end up with an infestation that could be a couple hundred metres squared. So suddenly you go from literally nothing to a big infestation, then nobody really knows what to do with it or doesn't have the budget to deal with it. And so then you start seeing the claims come in. So yeah, but I mean, if you were to treat it initially, contain it initially, put in a buffer zone system, so you've got a zone around it that keeps it contained, doesn't let it spread, then there's ways to deal with it. But it's when it basically spreads and then spreads up to boundaries, because it knows there's no boundaries, as it were, for the Japanese knotweed. It simply goes under fences or around buildings.
Well, it respects nothing, does it?
Respects nothing, no.
Gets everywhere. Oh, well, that's really interesting. I never really had kind of got into my head that there was that many claims you could, that many ways you could claim for Japanese knotweed and trees. But they're clearly
there's a fair degree of different ways of approaching those types of claims.
And what do you like to do when you're not dealing with Japanese knotweed and trees?
Oh, goodness me. Well,
not work related. What does Tim like to do out of the office?
Well, I like to do a bit of slow jogging, a bit of slow plodding.
Oh, I don't think it's slow plodding, is it? It's much more impressive than I could manage.
No. And sometimes a bit of running, a bit of cycling. So we had the Three Peaks Challenge for the Forbes Foundation. Yeah. So that was
the Yorkshire Three Peaks, wasn't it?
Yes.
So not far away from where you are.
So that was really good. So put a bit of it was further than I thought it was going to be. That's one thing I'll take from that.
I've done it before, and it does, because the first peak is deceiving, isn't it?
It is.
You get up there and you think, oh, this won't take that long. Why do people think, oh, it take 12 hours?
Yes.
And then you've got the horrendously long walk.
It does take 12 hours.
It does take 12 hours. And you had it on a really hot day as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. It was a fabulous day for doing it, but it was really warm. Oh dear, it was sweltering. We had some really great support, really good support. Lots of support, so lots of water and lots of things to eat. Lots
that's
of
always nice.
Yeah, no, it was very, very, very good. But I would say, anybody think of doing it, allow plenty of time. I think that's take your time doing it and allow plenty of time. But it was really good. We've got the firm, the people from all the different offices, different departments all got together. So yeah, fabulous, really good.
Excellent. Really good. Yeah, and so you got to meet other people that you wouldn't normally have met as well.
So there's people there that I've never normally see, never somebody meet. So yeah, it's just really good. Then you get chatting and find out which department they're in and who they know, and you know similar people, or there's people they know that you know. So yeah, no, it's really good, really good.
Good
really
stuff. And I've actually also had a question in for you, which is the first time this has happened. So on LinkedIn, you've been known to go around on a Friday and have Friday fish and chip photo.
Fish and chips,
obviously. And this is now famous because I've had a question in from partner Jennifer Smith from the employment team. Asking where is your favourite place to get fish and chips?
Oh dear. It'd be difficult to pinpoint one particular place, but I would say I'm a bit more independent. Small fish and chips take priority or favourites rather than perhaps like Weatherby Whaler and bigger chains and things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their fish and chips, great fish and chips, but I sometimes find a little independence, so I tend to go there. So if I could find a backstreet fish and chip shop, then that's probably where I aim to go to.
Well, we might send you around her home area, and then you can find it and then recommend her one. She'd be quite happy about that. And we've done quite a lot of work, haven't we, around LinkedIn and rolling it out to the wider firm, because obviously it's a really popular way that people look at, and it markets us and it gets us out and chatting to clients and people. Have you noticed that that's kind of a big change in the way we've marketed since you first joined Forbes?
Definitely, because the marketing used to be effectively you'd have flyers that you might, well, originally you'd post out to people. You'd say, right, here's a flyer, send them out to X, Y, Z. Or you'd take them to face-to-face meetings, you'd hand over your flyer and say, this is what we do. But with social media, I mean, you can cover so much to so many people just at a touch of a button. I mean, that's a really, really good thing, but you just have to be careful how you use it. But constructively, it's incredible because you can put all this information together. You can send it out to all of your clients at once, or you can just target particular clients you think you're going to be interested. And you've got that open forum because if anybody's interested, they can just come back to you. They can directly message you, and then you can then target what you want to do in terms of what they want to do. So they'll come back and say, well, I don't want to know about trees, but that Japanese knotweed sounds interesting. So then you go and put together some material for them for Japanese knotweed. So I think it's completely changed everything that we do.
We do. It's fun, isn't it, as well? Because we get to be able to like reach people that we wouldn't normally reach and connect with people that you might not have spoken to for a long time.
The client thing is the big thing because you want to promote what we do and the good service that we give, but also internally because you can follow what other people are doing, so you can see what other teams are doing, what other people are doing in terms of office activities or where they're going. So I think it's just really good for that because again, ordinarily you wouldn't have the opportunity to
well, that's true because obviously you're Leeds, I'm Manchester. We've spread out, and we are sat here in Walton Summit and near Preston. So it's good for keeping in touch with people.
It's really good, isn't it?
And talking about office activities, we're about to launch the Forbes Pride playlist.
Yes.
For Manchester Pride, we decided to have our Pride parties around there. So, what would be your top 3 songs for the playlist, Tim?
I'd definitely put some George Michael on there.
Excellent. Well, he's on there.
He's on there.
He's
got Wham on there.
Wham's definitely on there.
What else would I put on there? I probably would have a bit. I must admit, I did see Annette's email this morning, but I would be thinking about YMCA as well. I think I'd put it on there, I think. And then another thing, really, sort of like, put some dance tunes on, really. I'll just get
the party going.
I'll even go back to a bit of like the 60s stuff and all that sort. I'll put the Four Tops, all that sort of stuff on, and a bit of Aretha and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, I'll get that on there as well. Well, that's on there as well.
That's a given. I think I'll perhaps go back a little bit, but I'll definitely up there with George Michael and Wham. So I think that's where you've got to be, really.
Exactly. And you guys in Leeds looking forward to it?
We are, yes. On the 29th, we've got ours happening as well in the Leeds office. So, all good for that. I think we're going to steal, some of your playlist, but apart from that...
Well, I'm making it available. So,
Spotify,
it's going to be on Spotify. So, all of our offices, when they have their office party, will have the Forbes Pride Party playlist. Anyone listening to this that's got towards the end of the podcast, you can listen to it.
Yes.
I mean, if anyone knows me, there'll be a lot of Kylie and Steps on there.
Steps, of course, I've got all that.
Exactly, Steps as well. Steps as well, bit of 5, 6, 7, 8, Tragedy.
Absolutely,
It'll be all going off, which will be really, really good fun.
S Club 7, we have any S Club 7 on there?
Oh, of course, all the hits. Excellent. Bewitched, 5, 90s classics.
It's all there, isn't it?
It's all there. Oh. So I think we should, maybe do some Forbes Pride merchandise.
Yes.
But I'm really pleased with that because the EDIB committee, the Equality, Diversity, Inclusion and Belonging, is really starting to get going now. And we kick in and we've got all these events going on, which is really good.
No, it's very good, isn't it?
It is good. And we've obviously attended quite a few events together now. We like the Leeds Insurance do.
Yes, a dinner.
We like that.
Yeah. We've done all sorts together, haven't we? All the LinkedIn stuff. Yeah.
And it's good, really. I like that about Forbes, that you very much come together with your colleagues from other offices as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And at all different levels as well. I mean, we're talking here, aren't we, partner to partner, but everybody gets involved in all the LinkedIn stuff. There's a lot of stuff on there from other members of the teams at all different levels. It's all good stuff. It all comes together. It all promotes what we're doing and it shows what we like as a firm, doesn't it? It's all one big family.
Exactly.
Wherever you might be, which office, whatever level you might be at. But
exactly. It's all really good stuff, isn't it?
Good.
Oh, good. So, cycling as well, Tim. Have you done much cycling recently?
Well, not recently, I have to tell, no. But I did previously do the Tour de Forbes. That was a really, really, really good event. So if you fancy cycling around the Forbes offices...
Well, Ridwan was talking to me about this on his podcast. And it does sound interesting, but it sounds a long way.
It is a long way, but that actually goes quicker, I think, than you think. Whereas the Three Peaks, the Yorkshire Three Peaks, I thought actually that took longer than I thought it was going to take, just sort of mentally preparing for it. But the Tour de Forbes, because you go around all the offices, you're seeing lots of different people, lots of fantastic support. You're getting fed, you're getting watered. It does seem to go quite quickly. So I think that's one probably for you then, if you're thinking, right. Yeah. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. You never know. Maybe next year I'll get involved.
Give it a go.
I need to do a bit of training though first.
You'll be fine.
I know. I've played football. Well, exactly. I was just saying, I played football last night and been bitten to bits by insects. So
no.
Injured. Injured currently. We get the call up for the World Cup final, sadly.
Yet.
Not just yet. I think maybe I've missed my chance.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. But you've always got to be positive, haven't you?
You have got to be. Yes. Just keep on going. But I think you'd thoroughly enjoy it. But you can also just go office to office, so you don't have to go do the whole thing. You could just decide, I want to go from Leeds to Manchester, or Manchester through to Preston or Blackburn, or even Blackpool now, of course, couldn't you, with the Blackpool office?
Of course,
so
we've got Blackpool as well.
Yeah, you could end up doing that. So, I would say give it a go.
It sounds fun. Yeah, maybe I'll be there next year.
Yeah.
If the treats are right, I'm in.
There's always plenty of treats. To keep you going. Plenty of Haribos, plenty of chocolate.
Oh, that sounds good. And we can look out for any Japanese knotweed on the way as well.
Yes. Depending where we are, have a look and see what we can see. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's been really good stuff, Tim. I've really enjoyed that. And it's been great to have you on. And I've certainly learnt a lot today, which is good about trees and all sorts. I'll be looking out on my way home later.
Very good.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on, Tim. It's been a real pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you.
Thank you.